was your childhood? The girl from the Ostrich Mountain spent her childhood in the 1970s. Her story, spanning from chapter 1 to chapter 12, unfolds during that decade and reflects the lives of children at that time, particularly in her village on the slopes of the Ostrich Mountain. She believes that the experiences of children from the 1970s will resonate with her story, capturing the essence of that era for future generations. Let's continue. As I prepared to leave the village for the first time in my life, memories of my childhood flooded my mind. I recalled the arrival of the first television in our village. The owner of that television had come to the village with his family for a government assignment. By the village standards of the early 1970s, the family seemed quite wealthy, as owning television back then was a distant dream for most villagers. Television was a complex technology at that time, and without electricity in the village, it was something the villagers could hardly imagine, let alone dream of. To the village, the family had so much money that they could afford to buy a television set and a battery to power it so that it could work in the village. They therefore automatically joined the upper class of the few villagers who owned cars and motorcycles. Even if my parents were considered rich because they owned shops, they did not have a TV, a car, or a motorcycle, and therefore belonged to another hierarchy or the middle class. This new family had recently arrived in the village and had taken on roles at a local girls' boarding school. This school served and still serves girls from both the village and distant areas. The new family lived in the staff quarters, which were and are still part of a gated community belonging to the school. This area was off limits to the village cows and goats, as well as to villagers who did not have business at the school. As the school continued to expand through Harambes, or fundraising efforts organized by influential people from the big city, it began to hire more staff from outside the village, bringing in even more newcomers. As I prepared to leave my beloved village, I realized it was entering a new phase, embracing new cultures and changes as the newcomers began to settle in. The school and its staff quarters were part of the village and near my parents' shops. When we heard about the new family and the television, my playmates and I came up with a plan to sneak into the school staff quarters to catch a glimpse of this new technology. Every evening, under the cover of darkness, we could quietly enter the school compound, tiptoe to the new family's apartment, and hold our breath as we tried to peek through the small gaps in the curtains that had been unintentionally left open. When we finally caught our first glimpse of a live television screen, we couldn't help but giggle in amazement. Our excitement was contagious, and we quickly ran away to avoid getting caught. Unfortunately, the wealthy family never allowed the village children into their home, which is why we always snuck in every other evening after they locked themselves in for the night. I can't help but smile as I look back on our mischief. Because we always felt safe under the cover of darkness, we were never caught by anyone, not even the watchman, or sometimes anyone else who might be patrolling the compound to ensure everything was fine. If we had been caught, we knew we would have faced strict discipline. There was so much socializing and community interaction that time flew by. Amid the bustle and hustle of the day, the villagers hardly noticed how much time had passed. The idea of sitting in front of a television screen to watch it seemed completely foreign to us, and it felt like something from another planet. Evenings were spent around a 3-stone fireplace, roasting maize and sweet potatoes while listening to stories and discussing the events of the day that had just ended. For children, tales of big giants, hyenas, and little rabbits seemed endless. Whether true or not, we believed what our adults told us as we watched the fire in the 3-stone fireplace fade into darkness before bedtime. And as the fire dwindled away, we would warm some water and place it in a basin, as we were required to wash our feet before going to bed. Since most of us did not have slippers to wear after washing our feet, we would tiptoe to bed for the night. I should mention that back then, the only small objects in most households that seemed to talk to themselves were battery-powered radios. As children, we wondered how an entire human being could fit into such a small box-like object and speak through it. Later, we learned that voices were brought into these tiny objects through airwaves from distant radio stations. During story time in lower primary classes in primary school, which in my childhood included classes 1 to 4, teachers used a large box-like radio for storytelling. The radio storyteller, or the voice behind the story, was an elderly man whom the teachers introduced as Muse, meaning an old person. At the end of every year, all the class 4 children were informed that Muse had died. This was a strategy used by the teachers to disconnect the children from the Muse radio storyteller, as storytelling in primary school concluded after class 4. We always felt sorry for Muse because Muse seemed to die every other year, and we believed our teachers. At home, these radios were exclusively operated by our fathers, and children were not allowed to touch them unless our fathers permitted us to do so. Our fathers typically listened to the radio at specific times during the day and evening when news was broadcast and other favorite programs that villagers loved to listen to. The clock was ticking, and at the time of village girls' adventures in the village were coming to close. The village girl from the slopes of the Ostrich Mountain was about to leave the village. It was time to start saying goodbye to her playmates, family, and the entire community. So chapter 13 serves as a farewell to the previous 12 chapters of her narrative. Her adventure continues in chapter 14. So be sure not to miss her journey as she embarks on the next phase of her life. Thank you for listening. Follow and subscribe if you can, and see you in my next video.